Number 8. The deadly baby shower. On October 15, 2023, 44-year-old Shawanda Woods allegedly shot 51-year-old Phoebe Williams in the neck at a baby shower, killing her instantly. Woods reportedly arrived uninvited to the baby shower, and before too long, an argument ensued between her and the victim. A gun was drawn in the heat of the moment, and the party guests watched helplessly as Williams was struck down in front of them. The victim's relatives revealed that the alleged perpetrator was a longtime friend of the family, so no one could have expected what transpired. On October 13th, 2 days prior to the incident, Woods had apparently filed a police report against the victim's son, 36-year-old Leandre Devon Love, claiming he had committed a crime. In a strange twist, the alleged shooter headed to a nearby police station to turn herself in. But as soon as she exited the car, Love, who had been following her the whole time, tried to run her over. Woods was hospitalized for her injuries, but nevertheless, she was charged with second-degree homicide and felony firearm possession. As for the victim's son, he was arrested on charges of intent to commit homicide and felonious assault. Both of them were scheduled to appear in court on November 1st for what is shaping up to be a lengthy court battle. Number 7. Post-homicide pizza. On September 4th, 2023, 25-year-old Joshua Hill got into an argument with his mother, which ended with him shooting her to death. In an act of true cold-bloodedness, he was eventually caught while trying to order a pizza. The 64-year-old victim, a longtime resident of Inkster, Michigan, was eventually found dead by police at approximately 2 p.m. They had received suspicious reports at her home near Glenwood, and the discovery prompted them to launch a manhunt to locate the culprit. The killer allegedly fled in his Ford Escape, but by September 6th, he had abandoned his vehicle and continued his escape on foot. According to one of the neighbors who had known the victim for nearly 3 decades, Hill was a bit of a misfit who mostly kept to himself. She also alleged that he was mentally ill, which might explain his bizarre decision to leave his car behind, as well as the circumstances that eventually led to his arrest. On September 10th, a Detroit police officer saw Hill placing an order at a Domino's Pizza and arrested him on the spot. The killer's casual demeanor after taking his own mother's life suggests that he had a tenuous grasp on reality, and it was later revealed that he was armed at the time of his arrest. Hill was charged with first-degree homicide and felony possession of a firearm, and after his indictment on September 12th, he was transferred to jail with his bond set at $1 million. His next scheduled court appearance was on September 20th, but it was held behind closed doors, and its details have not been made public. Number 6. The burning corpse. On June 9, 2023 in Detroit, 42-year-old Cortez Xavier Coleman allegedly choked and killed his wife, 48-year-old Stacy Smith, before stabbing her lifeless corpse and setting it ablaze. The victim, a mother of 2, was reportedly quite happy in the lead-up to her death. Her eventual killer had proposed to her just 2 weeks before taking her life, and none of their friends and family noticed anything amiss. At approximately 11:20 p.m., the victim's daughter, Kaya Smith, decided to visit her mother's apartment. Upon entering, she noticed that the whole house smelled of lighter fluid. She soon discovered her mother with stab wounds in her chest and gruesome burn marks covering one of her legs. The killer had fled the scene, but police were able to apprehend him on June 12th. Police later revealed that Coleman tried to cover up his crime before fleeing, and the partial leg burns may have been an attempt to get rid of the corpse. He was charged with first-degree homicide, and after his indictment on June 15th, he was remanded in custody without bond. Court proceedings began on July 5th with a probable cause hearing, followed by his preliminary examination on July 12th. He will stay in jail until the outcome of his trial, and if he is declared guilty, he will spend decades in prison for his heinous crime. Do you think there's enough evidence to convict Coleman? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 5. Killed by chemicals. On October 1st, 2021, 18-year-old Megan Joyce Imirowitz poured toxic chemicals on her father, 64-year-old Conrad Imirowitz, who spent 5 months at Ascension Genesis Hospital before breathing his last breath. According to reports, the victim, who had long struggled with alcohol, had allegedly told his daughter that he was too intoxicated to drive her to the hair salon. The killer was looking forward to the appointment since she needed to get ready for her birthday party, and the refusal prompted Megan to douse him in a mixture of water and lye powder while he slept. The attack left him with massive chemical burns across his body, forcing doctors to remove both his legs as well as his trachea. He suffered for months until he was taken off life support on March 3, 2022, and he finally succumbed to his wounds 3 days later. The killer exited her home after the attack, and the victim's body was only found after a neighbor discovered him barely conscious on the couch. Michigan State Police arrested Megan shortly after. Oddly enough, her father initially claimed that she had not hurt him, but he changed his statement after talking to her older brother. According to Megan, her brother had abused her in the past, but the case against her had already been set in motion. On June 15, 2023, a jury found Megan guilty of domestic violence and unlawful use of a harmful irritant. She reportedly shut her eyes and held back her tears as the verdict was declared. Megan faced a maximum sentence of life without parole, but on July 25th, the judge decided to give her an extremely lenient penalty of 1 year imprisonment, followed by 5 years of probation. Since Megan had already been in jail for 506 days, she was released on time served. Other conditions of her probation include mandatory psychological assessments and blood tests, and she will be forced to wear an ankle monitor until her probation ends in 2028. Number 4. Hunting knife. On September 30th, 2023, 56-year-old Ricardo Orozco allegedly stabbed his wife to death with a hunting knife. The victim's identity has been kept under wraps, but reports indicate that she and Ricardo had a violent history. A resident of Hazel Park, the killer apparently placed his wife's body in his Dodge Durango and drove to a gas station in Warren, where he attempted to talk to a clerk. In later testimony, the clerk stated that Ricardo approached him, reeking of alcohol and covered in blood, claiming that there was a woman bleeding in his car, but not revealing that it was his wife. This was enough to convince the clerk to inform the authorities. When police arrived, they found Ricardo in the driver's seat of his Dodge. His wife's corpse was in the back seat, covered with stab wounds that indicate that he killed her in a violent frenzy. After searching the vehicle, police discovered the hunting knife on the driver's side floorboard. It was soaked in the victim's blood, and police later concluded that she had been killed elsewhere before Ricardo tossed her body into the car and drove to the gas station. The corpse was soaked with water and covered in sand, and police later unearthed video evidence confirming that the couple had been to the beach earlier that day. However, they were not able to tell if that is where the fatal encounter occurred. The perpetrator was arrested, and despite admitting to the killing multiple times, he pleaded not guilty to charges of second-degree homicide. On October 1st, Ricardo was taken into custody at Macomb County Jail, where he awaits his trial. His last court appearance was on October 17th for a probable cause hearing, the results of which are unknown. Given the mountain of evidence against him, it's likely that he will be in prison for the rest of his life, though the lack of a clear motive is a puzzling aspect of this morbid incident. Number 3. Corpse in a cooler. On May 22, 2019, police in Sturgis, Michigan, received an anonymous tip that 35-year-old Wade Allen had killed his girlfriend, 42-year-old Kelly Jean Warner. What they had yet to discover was that he had choked her to death, mutilated her corpse, and tried to store it in 2 water coolers. The source referred to himself as Stephen and said he was a friend of Allen's. He told police that the killer had confessed to accidentally killing Warner by hitting her with the back of his hand after she got mouthy with him. When police arrived to search Allen's apartment, the perpetrator claimed that Warner was not there. He said that he had last seen her in Kalamazoo, suggesting that she might be in a homeless shelter there. Police were not convinced, and when they were asked to search the apartment, Alan's excuse only raised their suspicions. He claimed that his apartment was too dirty and that they should return after he had a chance to clean up. The officers told the perpetrator that they could obtain a warrant and hold him outside the apartment while they waited, which prompted Alan to allow one officer to enter. The officer soon found a water cooler, which Alan tried to prevent him from opening. He only relented when he was placed in handcuffs and escorted to the police vehicle, on the condition that he be present when they opened the cooler. When the officers took the top off, they found pieces of Warner's dismembered body stuffed inside. Alan was immediately brought into custody and sent to St. Joseph's Jail. While there, he reportedly told another inmate about strangling his victim in graphic detail. The inmate passed this information along to the authorities, and on October 7, 2020, Alan sexually assaulted him in revenge, clearly displaying his affinity for sadism and violence. The killer was charged with second-degree homicide and attempted dismemberment, with third-degree criminal sexual conduct tacked on, after the assault of the fellow inmate. On January 30th, 2023, nearly 4 years after committing this heinous act, he finally pleaded no contest to all the charges. On June 1st, Alan was sentenced to 39 to 60 years for homicide, 2 to 5 years for dismemberment, and an additional 38 months to 5 years for the assault. Given he was 39 years old at the time of sentencing, it's almost certain that he will die behind bars. Number 2. Truck stop death. On October 13th, 2023, 26-year-old Justin Wendling shot and killed his girlfriend, 25-year-old Gina Bryant. The couple seemed to be a perfect match, at least on the surface. They were both Michigan natives, with Wendling hailing from Holly and Bryant from Macomb. The perpetrator was a resident gynecologist at Ascension Genesis Hospital, while his eventual victim was studying to become a nurse at the University of Michigan Flint at the time. She was also working as a medical assistant to pay her way through school, and despite the precarious balancing act, she was still an extremely dedicated student according to university faculty. Working in the same field as her boyfriend should have aided in fostering a harmonious relationship, but unfortunately everything started going downhill for her precisely when Wendling entered her life. The sordid saga began in December 2022 when the couple started dating. They seemed to have a whirlwind romance, with Bryant moving into Wendling's home in Grand Blanc Township not long after they got together. However, it turned out that the perpetrator was extremely abusive towards Bryant. When she finally told her family the truth in September 2023, her sister Angelica Gintner and her mother helped her escape Wendling's apartment. The perpetrator clearly saw this as an assault of some kind, since he went down a dark and deadly path just 2 weeks after she left. On October 12th, Bryant headed home for lunch just like she always did. This would be the last time anyone saw her alive. Not long after, her co-workers received strange text messages from her number, which prompted them to call the police. Wendling had apparently been lying in wait, and at 1:42 p.m., surveillance footage from one of her neighbors showed him abducting her. The next day, he called his parents and gave them 3 crucial pieces of information. He was at a truck stop in LaSalle, Illinois. He had killed Bryant, and he was planning to turn the gun on himself. His parents immediately alerted the police, telling them about their son's confession and his last known whereabouts. When authorities arrived on the scene at 7:43 p.m., the killer was nowhere to be found, but Bryant's body was already cold to the touch, with a gaping bullet wound in her head. According to security footage and witness testimony, Wendling pulled into the Flying J truck stop to fuel up. When the pump malfunctioned and the perpetrator headed into the store, Bryant tried to seize her chance to escape, only for Wendling to chase her and knock her to the ground. Witnesses watched in horror as he shot her in cold blood before fleeing in his SUV. A manhunt ensued, and by 11:45 p.m., police managed to find the perpetrator in Bettendorf, Iowa. Wendling had traveled hundreds of miles by this point, and as he saw police closing in, he aimed the gun at his own head and pulled the trigger. Bryant's family and friends described her as a selfless human being, pointing to her volunteer work, helping children with special needs. Her university also put out a statement mentioning how much potential she had and the deep loss the community felt now that she is gone. Number 1. Homicidal SonInLaw. On October 12, 2023, 41-year-old Kenneth MacDonald allegedly strangled his mother-in-law to death, 79-year-old Stella Lopiccolo Maltese, in her own home. At approximately 2:45 p.m., police and fire personnel arrived at the victim's house on Stony Brook W Drive, where they found her body in the bedroom. Officers immediately deemed her death suspicious and began looking for possible culprits. After several witness interviews, police arrested the alleged killer from his home in Macomb Township, where he resided with the victim's daughter. On October 16th, Maltese's loved ones bade their final goodbyes before her funeral the next day, while MacDonald was prosecuted on charges of second-degree homicide. He is currently being held in custody without bond pending his probable cause hearing on October 30th. Police have not revealed a possible motive or any details regarding the case, and since this is an ongoing investigation, there is no telling where things might go from here. Which of these gruesome Michigan crimes shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.